Emma Walker had always believed Christmas Eve carried a special kind of light, soft, warm, forgiving. But that night, as she stood in the dining room of her old colonial-style house in Connecticut, 8 months pregnant and trembling, the world felt darker than the winter sky outside. The scent of roasted turkey filled the air, Bing Crosby played softly in the background, and the fire crackled in the corner. It should have been a peaceful evening. It should have been a memory worth keeping. Instead, it became the moment her entire world shattered. She wiped her palms on her sweater, trying to ignore the stiffness in her back. Pregnancy had not been gentle with her, but she never complained. She always found a way to smile, especially for her husband, Andrew. She believed he was stressed, overwhelmed, tired. She believed that if she held on a little longer, everything would align again. She believed too much. The first sign of the nightmare arrived as a vibration on the kitchen counter. Andrew's phone lit up. Emma wasn't snooping, she merely glanced out of habit. But the notification hit her like a slap. A heart emoji, and the words, "See you tonight, babe." Her breath caught. She told herself it might be a mistake, a coworker, a joke, anything but the truth clawing its way into her chest. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear and forced herself to focus on the mashed potatoes. She didn't want to ruin Christmas. She didn't want to assume the worst. But then came the second blow, the doorbell. She felt her heart pounding in her throat as she walked toward the entrance. She hoped it was a neighbor, a delivery, anyone else. But when she opened the door, she froze. A young woman stood there, maybe 25, with perfect golden curls, a fitted red dress, and a smug smile that made Emma's stomach twist. The cold air clung to her expensive perfume. She didn't say, "Merry Christmas." She didn't introduce herself politely. Instead, she stepped inside like she owned the place. And Andrew appeared behind Emma and said 7 words that cracked her heart in two. "Emma, this is Mia. She's joining us." Emma felt the world tilt. Her hands instinctively covered her belly, as if shielding her unborn child from the poison in the room. Mia's eyes glided over her stomach, slow, judgmental, cruel. Emma tried to steady her breath, but the humiliation burned hotter than the fireplace behind her. She returned to the dining table, moving slowly, afraid to show how shattered she felt. She kept reminding herself to stay calm for the baby, but Mia made it impossible. She commented on Emma's size, her clothes, her messy hair, and even asked if Emma had let herself go. Each word stabbed deeper. Emma looked at Andrew, begging silently for support. Instead, he laughed. Actually laughed, as if her pain was entertainment. The turkey tasted like ash in Emma's mouth. The candle flames blurred. Her eyes stung, but she held the tears back. She would not break here. Not in front of them. But pain has a way of finding its moment. When Emma rose to get more water, Mia grabbed her arm and leaned close, whispering something so awful it turned Emma's legs weak. "You don't deserve him. You never did." Emma tried to pull away, but Mia tightened her grip. The pressure was sharp, almost violent. For a second, Emma felt dizzy. Her baby kicked hard, as if sensing danger. She gasped, holding on to the table's edge. And that was the moment, the exact second, when everything shifted. The entire night, every cruelty, every humiliation, was building towards something Emma could not yet imagine. Because just then, the front door opened again, and a man stepped in. A man whose presence alone changed the air in the room. And Emma had no idea that his arrival would turn the entire nightmare upside down. Emma Walker had always been the kind of woman people described as gentle, too gentle for her own good. At 29, she carried the kind of softness that made strangers trust her instantly. She used to work as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, the kind of nurse who remembered every patient's name, who stayed late without being asked, who held the hands of people taking their final breaths. She lived for helping others. But the moment she found out she was pregnant, Andrew insisted she quit. He said he wanted her safe. He said he wanted her to rest. He said he would take care of everything. And like a woman who believed in her marriage, she agreed. Now she spent her days alone in that old colonial house in Connecticut, counting weeks, listening to the quiet, and waiting for Andrew to come home, hoping each night would be the night he treated her the way he used to. But instead of comfort, silence became her closest companion. And loneliness grew like dust in the corners of every room. Her pregnancy was not easy. She had morning sickness through most of her second trimester. She felt dizzy often. Her legs swelled. Some nights, she cried quietly into her pillow because she feared she wasn't strong enough to raise a baby in a marriage that felt like a cracked window, cold air always finding a way in. Yet she never let Andrew see that. She never let anyone see it. She hid her pain behind small smiles and warm dinners, hoping love would fix what was falling apart. But Andrew changed. Slowly at first, then so quickly she could hardly keep up. He became distant, snappish. He began staying late at meetings. His phone was always face down. He started correcting little things about her appearance, telling her to try harder, telling her pregnancy wasn't an excuse to stop caring. Each comment bruised her heart a little more, but she continued trying, continued cooking his favorite meals, continued believing marriage was something worth fighting for. The truth was, Emma loved fiercely. She loved with her whole chest. She believed marriage meant loyalty through the dark days. She believed sacrifice was part of building a family. And she believed Andrew, despite everything, would come back to her if she stayed patient long enough. But that belief cost her more than she ever expected. Her world had already been fragile before Mia entered the house that Christmas Eve. Emma had been living in a quiet ache for months, an ache she never said out loud. She didn't tell anyone about the nights Andrew yelled because dinner was late. She didn't tell anyone how he blamed her for being too emotional. She didn't tell anyone that he had taken control of their finances, telling her it was for her own good. Emma thought those sacrifices made her a good wife. She thought they made her strong. But standing in that dining room, with her belly heavy and her heart breaking, she realized her love had turned into something else, something like captivity. And now, with Mia smirking across the table and Andrew cold as stone beside her, she felt smaller than she had ever felt in her life. Still, inside her, something refused to break completely. A thin thread of courage remained tiny, trembling, almost invisible. Maybe it came from her unborn child, who kicked gently every time she was afraid. Maybe it came from the memory of the woman she used to be, the nurse who stayed strong for others. Or maybe it came from a place deep within her, a place no one had managed to crush. Whatever it was, that fragile bit of strength kept her breathing through the humiliation, through the coldness, through the pain. Because even though Emma didn't know it yet, her story was about to take a turn no one could have predicted. And the world would soon see just how strong she truly was. The house where everything unfolded that Christmas Eve was nothing extraordinary from the outside. An old colonial-style home resting at the edge of a quiet road in Fairfield County, Connecticut. White siding, black shutters, a small porch wrapped in evergreen garlands for the holiday. It looked peaceful, safe, the kind of place where families shared warm dinners and told stories by the fire. But inside, the air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves had grown tired of holding secrets. Emma had spent weeks preparing the Christmas decorations. She wanted the house to feel alive again, to bring warmth into the cold spaces where Andrew's silence lingered. She placed soft lights along the staircase railing, hung a handmade wreath on the door, arranged fresh pine branches around the fireplace, and laid out the fine china they rarely used. She even polished the silverware Andrew inherited from his grandmother. Everything gleamed under the golden lights. Everything looked like a picture out of a holiday magazine. She did it all, hoping to remind Andrew of the life they were supposed to share. The dining room table was set for two before she knew Mia would be there. 2 tall candles flickered in the center, their flames dancing gently each time the door opened. The turkey she cooked rested on a large platter, surrounded by roasted vegetables she had carefully seasoned. A pitcher of cranberry punch glowed deep red under the chandelier. Emma had stood in the kitchen for hours, her swollen feet aching, but she never complained. She wanted the night to be special. She wanted Andrew to see the effort she put in, to notice her again, the way he used to. But the house no longer felt like a home. Ever since Emma quit her job, it had become something like a cage, beautiful on the outside, heavy on the inside. Every room held reminders of the control Andrew kept over her life. The locked filing cabinet in his study, the missing car keys, the way he insisted she stay inside for her own safety, the way her phone mysteriously stopped receiving calls from her family. She had asked Andrew about it once, but he shrugged and said it must be a network issue. The isolation changed the way she saw the house. The living room, once filled with soft blankets and scented candles, now felt like a place where she paced during sleepless nights, worrying about the future. The kitchen, where she loved experimenting with recipes, now felt like a duty station where she measured her worth through Andrew's reactions. Even the bedroom, once their sanctuary, had become a space filled with coldness, where Andrew slept with his back turned to her. And now, on Christmas Eve, that same house became the stage for her humiliation. The snow outside painted the windows white, muting the world beyond. It should have made the night feel magical, but instead it made the house feel closed off like there was no escape. The fireplace crackled, sending shadows across the walls as the night grew darker. Emma stood in the glow of the flames, trying to breathe, trying to keep her heart steady. The warmth of the fire contrasted sharply with the chill that spread across her chest each time she looked at Andrew. Mia's presence poisoned the atmosphere instantly. Her bright red dress clashed with the soft Christmas colors Emma had decorated with. Her perfume overpowered the cinnamon scent Emma had hoped would make the night cozy. Her voice, sharp and mocking, bounced off the walls, filling every corner of the house with tension. Even the baby inside Emma seemed unsettled, shifting as if sensing the chaos. The house that once symbolized safety had become the perfect backdrop for betrayal. Every ornament, every candle, every string of lights now felt like part of a cruel joke, Emma's attempt to create warmth in a place where love had quietly died. Yet, hidden beneath the pain, the house also held something else, a sense that fate was shifting, that something unexpected was about to break through the darkness. And none of them knew that someone powerful was already on his way, heading straight toward that very house. Mia Langford was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made it clear she had no intention of blending in. At 25, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had learned early in life that beauty could open doors faster than kindness ever could. Her hair fell in perfect golden curls, her red dress hugged her figure like it was stitched onto her body, and the click of her heels on Emma's hardwood floors sounded more like a declaration than footsteps. She didn't knock. She didn't smile politely. She entered Andrew and Emma's home as if she had been invited for years. The truth was, Mia loved chaos. She lived for it. She enjoyed the thrill of taking what belonged to someone else. And Andrew, weak and aching for validation, had fallen right into her hands. She met him at a bar in Manhattan months earlier when he claimed his marriage was basically over. Mia didn't care whether it was true. She cared only that Andrew looked at her with hungry eyes, and that he carried an expensive watch and the kind of insecurity she knew she could manipulate. From the moment she stepped into Emma's home on Christmas Eve, Mia intended to dominate the night. She saw Emma pregnant, tired, soft-hearted, and instantly decided she could crush her without effort. She saw Emma's swollen feet, her simple sweater, her trembling hands, and she felt a sharp thrill. Weakness was Mia's favorite scent. She made her first move quickly, letting her perfume fill the air as she said, "This house is cute. Kind of old-fashioned, though, isn't it?" Her tone was sweet, but the venom underneath was unmistakable. She let her eyes wander around the dining room as if she hoped to find something worth mocking. Then she looked at Emma's stomach and smirked, adding, "I guess you've had other priorities." Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she stayed silent. She didn't want to cause a scene. She didn't want the baby to feel her stress. And above all, she didn't want to give Mia the satisfaction of reacting. But Mia thrived in silence. It gave her room to escalate. She leaned closer to Emma while Andrew poured wine for her. "Pregnancy looks heavy on you," she whispered. "I don't know how Andrew puts up with it." Emma's grip tightened on her napkin, her knuckles turning white. She looked at Andrew, hoping for support, but he was smiling at Mia like she was a guest of honor. His face softened in ways Emma hadn't seen in months, not for her, not while she was carrying his child. For Mia. It was then Emma realized that Mia wasn't just another woman. She was the woman Andrew had chosen to bring into their home. Their Christmas Eve, their table, their marriage. Mia lifted her wine glass, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "To new traditions," she said. Andrew clinked his glass with hers, leaving Emma frozen in place. As dinner progressed, Mia became bolder. She made comments about women who let themselves go. She laughed about men needing excitement. She nudged Andrew's shoulder when she found something funny, touching him in ways that stabbed at Emma's chest. And Andrew let her. He didn't pull away. He didn't correct her. He didn't even glance at Emma to check if she was okay. The cruelty only grew from there. When Emma served the turkey, Mia leaned back and said, "Oh honey, be careful. We don't want you dropping anything in your condition." Her smile was wide, fake, dangerous. But underneath her smug confidence, Mia had a fear she hid well, the fear of being replaced. She knew Andrew wasn't loyal. She knew he was weak. She knew the same way he drifted toward her, he could drift toward someone else. And that fear made her meaner, harsher, desperate to assert dominance over Emma. She wanted control. She wanted power. And she wanted Emma to break. She believed she could walk into Emma's life and destroy her without consequence. But Mia had no idea that her cruelty would soon turn into the very noose tightening around her own neck. Because the night wasn't done with her, not even close. The dinner table that Emma had spent hours preparing, polishing silverware, arranging candles, carefully seasoning, every dish became the scene of her deepest humiliation. What she imagined would be a peaceful Christmas meal, slowly twisted into something sharp and cruel, something designed to break her spirit piece by piece. The candles flickered gently, but their warm light felt wrong now, almost mocking, as if they were witnesses to something they could not stop. Emma tried to focus on her breathing, on keeping her heart steady for the baby growing inside her. She had endured months of emotional wounds in silence, hoping the holiday might bring a small miracle, some kindness from Andrew, a glimpse of the man she married. But the night was slipping further and further away from that dream. Every second felt like stepping into darker territory. It started subtly. Mia pushed her plate away and wrinkled her nose. "The turkey's a little dry, but I guess cooking must be harder when you're, you know." Her eyes traveled slowly, deliberately, to Emma's belly. Emma swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Oh, don't apologize," Mia interrupted. "It's not your fault. Pregnancy makes some women clumsy." She smiled sweetly, then added in a lower voice meant for Emma alone, "Andrew prefers someone who can keep up." Emma's stomach nodded. The baby shifted inside her, as if sensing the tension. Andrew didn't defend her. He didn't speak a single word. He simply chewed his food and stared at his plate, letting Mia wield the room like a weapon. The second blow came when Emma reached for the cranberry sauce. Her hand trembled slightly. Her pregnancy sometimes made it difficult to hold things steady. Mia noticed instantly. "Ah, look at her," Mia cooed mockingly. "Here, let me help." She reached across the table, took the spoon, and scooped a large glob of cranberry sauce, too large. Then she flicked her wrist, just enough to make it splatter across Emma's sweater. Emma gasped softly as the cold sauce hit her chest and dripped down toward her belly. She instinctively covered her stomach, not caring about the mess. Andrew finally looked up, but not at his wife. At Mia. "Mia, come on," he said softly, like he was amused. "Don't tease her too much. Too much." As if a portion of humiliation was acceptable. Emma blinked rapidly, fighting the sting behind her eyes. She refused to cry. Not here, not in front of them. But Mia wasn't finished. When Emma rose slowly to get a cloth, Mia stood as well and followed her to the kitchen, heels clicking sharply against the wooden floor. Emma tried to ignore her, moving carefully so she wouldn't lose balance. She reached for a napkin, but before she could wipe her sweater, Mia stepped closer, too close. "You know," Mia whispered, "you really should be grateful. Andrew's been so patient with you, most men would have left months ago." Emma froze, her breath catching in her throat. Mia smiled wider. "Oh wait, they did. That's why I'm here." Emma's knees weakened. She gripped the edge of the counter. Then Mia made her move. She grabbed a handful of Emma's hair and yanked. The pain shot through Emma's scalp and down her spine. She cried out, one hand flying to protect her belly while the other instinctively tried to push Mia away. "Stop, please stop," Emma begged, her voice shaking. But Mia held on, her nails digging into Emma's scalp. "Don't play the victim," she hissed. "Andrew's sick of your whining." Andrew walked into the kitchen, just in time to see Mia jerking Emma's head backward. Instead of rushing forward, instead of protecting his pregnant wife, he sighed in annoyance. "Mia, don't pull her hair," he said casually. "She's pregnant, not made of glass." Emma's heart cracked. He didn't care. Not even a little. Then Mia reached for a spoonful of mashed potatoes, cooling on the counter. Her grin widened. "You didn't eat enough at dinner," she taunted. "Let me help you." Before Emma could react, Mia shoved the spoon toward her mouth, forcing the cold potatoes against her lips and cheek. It smeared across her face, dripping onto her sweater, mixing with the cranberry stain. Emma staggered backward, mortified, humiliated to her core. Every part of her shook from fear, from anger, from heartbreak. She didn't know how much more she could take. She didn't know how she was still standing. But the universe seemed to know Emma was reaching her breaking point. Because at that exact moment, a sudden, heavy knock echoed through the house, followed by the front door swinging open. Emma's hands were still trembling when she heard the knock echo through the house, but the sound did little to steady her. Her heart was beating so fast she could feel it pulsing in her throat. Her face burned from the mashed potatoes Mia had smeared across her cheek. Her scalp throbbed where her hair had been yanked. The cranberry stain on her sweater felt like a mark of shame she couldn't wipe away. Every humiliation of the night clung to her skin, heavy and suffocating. She leaned against the counter, struggling to catch her breath. The baby kicked again, harder this time, almost as if pleading for her to calm down. She pressed a hand to her stomach and whispered, "It's okay. Mommy's okay." But her voice cracked, betraying her. She wasn't okay. Not even close. Andrew walked back into the dining room, as if nothing unusual had happened. He didn't look at her, didn't reach for her, didn't acknowledge that his pregnant wife had just been assaulted by his mistress. Instead, he sat back down at the table and poured Mia another glass of wine. The sound of liquid hitting the crystal glass made something inside Emma twist painfully. Mia strutted past Emma with a satisfied smile, wiping her hands as if she had just finished a chore. "You should really take better care of yourself," she said lightly. "You look awful." Emma felt her chest tighten. She had always believed pain made people quieter, made them think before they spoke. But tonight, pain made Mia louder and it made Emma smaller. She tried to wipe her face again, but the potatoes had worked their way into her hair. The greasy smear made her stomach turn. She stared at her reflection in the microwave door, messy hair, red eyes, blotchy skin, and a look of pure devastation. She barely recognized herself. She felt like she was staring at the ghost of the woman she used to be. Her throat closed as a sob threatened to escape. She slapped a hand over her mouth, desperate to hold it in. She didn't want to give them the satisfaction. She didn't want to crumble where they could see. But tears slipped out anyway, warm and relentless. She moved to the corner of the kitchen and slid down the walls slowly, careful not to put pressure on her belly. She sat on the cold tile floor, hugging her knees as much as her pregnancy allowed. Her shoulders shook silently, each breath broken and shallow. She felt trapped in the house, trapped in the marriage, trapped in a life she no longer recognized. She thought of the woman she used to be. The nurse who stood strong during midnight emergencies. The woman who comforted families during tragedies. The woman who believed she could build a loving home with Andrew. She missed that woman. She missed her strength, her steadiness, her hope. But all of that felt so far away now. She thought of calling her mother, but her phone was in Andrew's study locked. She thought of walking out the door, but her car keys were gone, taken. She thought of screaming, but her voice felt too small. Then she heard Mia's laughter from the dining room, loud, high-pitched, cruel. It sliced through the house like a blade. Emma's breath hitched. The humiliation sat heavy in her chest, and the fear of what might come next pressed against her ribs. She whispered again, almost to herself, "Please, just stop." But no one heard her, no one cared. Her vision blurred with tears. She rested her head against the wall and closed her eyes, letting the darkness settle for a moment. She felt herself slipping, sinking into a place of despair she had never known. She wondered how much more she could take. She wondered if the night would ever end. She wondered if anyone, even God, was watching. Then the heavy knock came again, loud, firm, unmistakable. Emma's eyes snapped open. Andrew and Mia went silent. Footsteps approached, and before Emma could lift herself from the floor, a deep, unfamiliar voice filled the doorway, cutting through the humiliation like a blade. "Emma? Are you all right?" Emma froze at the sound of the voice. It wasn't Andrew. It wasn't any neighbor. It wasn't anyone she expected to be standing in her kitchen on Christmas Eve. She felt her breath tremble in her lungs as she wiped her eyes quickly, desperate to regain even a shred of dignity before whoever had spoken could see her like this. The footsteps moved closer, steady, confident, unhurried. Emma lifted her head just as a tall figure stepped into the warm glow of the kitchen lights. Logan Sterling. She blinked in disbelief. She hadn't seen him in nearly 3 years, not since the night she helped save his life after a car accident outside St. Mary's Hospital. Back then, he wasn't Logan Sterling, billionaire tech mogul. He was simply a terrified man bleeding on the asphalt, begging someone to help him. She had been that someone. She had stayed with him until the ambulance arrived, talking to him, keeping him awake, reassuring him he wouldn't die. She never took credit, never accepted anything in return. And yet, he was here. "Emma," Logan said again, his deep voice softening when he saw the tears, the stains on her sweater, the redness around her eyes. "What happened to you?" Emma opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was too embarrassed, too overwhelmed, too broken to speak. She tried to stand, but her legs wobbled. Logan stepped forward instinctively, offering a steady hand. Andrew appeared in the doorway behind him, face flushing with panic. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" he snapped. Logan didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed fixed on Emma. "I rang the bell," he said calmly. No one answered. The door was unlocked. "I heard a noise. I thought someone was hurt." Mia strutted in next, adjusting her hair, trying to look unbothered. "We're fine. Thanks for checking," she said with a sugary voice. "You can leave now." Logan's gaze sharpened instantly. "I wasn't talking to you." The air shifted. He knelt beside Emma, crouching to her level, ignoring the expensive coat he was wrinkling. "Did someone hurt you?" he asked quietly. Emma swallowed hard, shaking her head out of instinct, not truth. She felt the familiar urge to protect Andrew, to hide the ugliness, to pretend everything was okay. Old habits clung to her like chains. But Logan wasn't fooled. "I drove by on my way to the city," he continued softly. "Your house lights were flickering. I figured something was wrong. And you haven't been answering emails." I got worried. Emma's eyes filled again. She had forgotten those emails, the ones he sent every Christmas, thanking her again for saving his life. She never responded, afraid Andrew would find out. Andrew stepped closer, jaw tight. Logan finally looked at him, and the temperature in the room dropped. "Then why," he said slowly, "does your wife look like she's been crying on the kitchen floor?" Mia scoffed. "She's emotional. Hormones. You know how pregnant women are." Logan straightened, turning toward her in a way that made Mia visibly stiffen. "I know exactly how pregnant women are," he said coldly, "and none of them end up like this without someone putting them through hell." Emma felt something shift inside her, a flicker of validation, of protection, of being seen. Logan reached into his coat and pulled out a small black device. He tapped it once. A video began to play. Through the window outside, captured by a security camera across the street. Mia yanking Emma's hair. Mia forcing food into her face. Andrew doing nothing. Emma gasped. Andrew's face drained. Mia's hand flew to her mouth. "I saw everything," Logan said with quiet fury. "And this stops now." Emma's heart pounded, not in fear this time, but in the beginning spark of something else. Safety. Hope. A rescue she never expected. And as Logan turned back to her, offering his hand once more, Emma realized her nightmare wasn't continuing. Something powerful had just begun to break it apart. For the first time that night, Emma felt the energy in the room change, subtle at first, like a breeze through a half-open window, then stronger, undeniable. Logan's presence didn't just fill the kitchen. It grounded her. It gave shape to something she hadn't felt in months, the possibility of escape. She could feel it humming beneath her ribs, competing with the ache of humiliation and fear. Andrew took a step forward, trying to reclaim control. "Give me that," he demanded, reaching for the small device in Logan's hand. His voice cracked slightly, fear disguised as anger. Logan didn't move. "Touch me," he said evenly, "and you'll regret it before midnight." Andrew froze. Mia glanced nervously between the two men, unsure which side to pretend loyalty to. Her earlier confidence cracked at the edges. Emma, still sitting on the floor, pushed herself up slowly. Her knees trembled. Logan gently supported her elbow, careful not to touch her belly, careful not to crowd her, something Andrew never bothered to do. She steadied herself, brushing her hair away from her face, but the tenderness of Logan's gesture left a warmth she didn't know she needed. "Emma," Logan said softly, "you don't have to stay here." The words landed inside her like a shock. Andrew barked out a laugh. "She's my wife. She's not going anywhere." Logan didn't look at him. "Actually," he said, "she can go anywhere she wants. She's an adult, not your property." Mia crossed her arms, scoffing. "Oh, please. This is ridiculous. Emma's fine. She's emotional, that's all." Logan turned his head slowly, and the look he gave Mia silenced her instantly. "I watched you assault a pregnant woman," he said, voice icy. "You didn't just cross a line, you erased it." Emma's breath hitched. Hearing someone call out the truth clearly, boldly sent a wave of release through her chest. She had swallowed so much pain for so long that validation felt almost foreign. Andrew tried again. "Logan, this is none of your business. Emma is my wife, and things get heated sometimes." "Heated?" Logan cut in sharply. "You let your mistress attack the mother of your child. That's not heated, that's cruelty." A thick silence fell over the room. Emma's hands instinctively moved to her belly. The baby shifted again, and she winced slightly. Logan noticed immediately. "Are you in pain?" he asked. She shook her head. "Just stress, I think," Andrew muttered. "She's exaggerating." Logan's jaw tightened. "That's enough." He stepped closer to Emma, lowering his voice. "You don't have to speak if you're not ready. Just nod if you want to leave this house tonight." Emma stared at him, her throat tightening. The weight of the question felt enormous. Leaving meant safety, but it also meant facing the truth her marriage was beyond saving. It meant she couldn't pretend anymore. Her eyes flicked to Andrew. He didn't look concerned. He didn't look regretful. He looked irritated, as if she were an inconvenience interrupting his night. Then she looked at Mia, smirking, expecting Emma to crumble again, waiting for her to stay small. Something inside Emma, small but fierce, rose up. She nodded. Logan didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply accepted her choice with the steadiness of a man who had come prepared to protect her. "I'll take you to the car," he said softly. Emma took a shaky breath. Her legs were unsteady, but her resolve was not. Logan placed a supportive hand near her arm, guiding but never pushing. For the first time in months, she felt someone walking with her instead of against her. Andrew lunged forward. "You're not taking my wife." Logan's voice cut like steel. "If you try to stop her, I'll call the police and hand over every second of footage." Mia paled. "Footage? Can't you delete it?" "No," Logan answered. "And even if I wanted to, the copies have already uploaded to my cloud." The trap was fully shut. Emma walked past Andrew, each step a quiet rebellion, each breath a return to herself. She reached the front door, gripping the handle, feeling the cold draft brush her face. Behind her, Andrew shouted, Mia cursed, and Logan stood like a shield. But Emma didn't turn back. And as she stepped outside into the snowy night, she realized this was the beginning of her rise, not her fall. Snowflakes swirled through the cold Connecticut air as Emma stepped out onto the porch, but the icy wind felt gentler than anything she had endured inside that house. For a moment, she just stood there, her breath forming small clouds, her hand instinctively cradling her belly. The night was silent, except for the distant rustle of pine branches. It felt unreal, like she was standing between two worlds, the one that had broken her and the one she was about to enter. Behind her, chaos erupted. "Emma, get back in here." Andrew roared from the doorway. His voice didn't shake from love. It shook from losing control. Logan stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Emma, but in a protective way, not a possessive one. "She's not your prisoner," he said firmly. "Stay back." Mia appeared behind Andrew, her red dress shimmering under the porch light. She crossed her arms tightly, her earlier confidence cracking. "Oh my God, Andrew, do something, he's kidnapping her." Logan didn't even turn around. "If you call the police," he said calmly, "I'll give them the footage first." Mia went silent instantly. Emma took a slow, deep breath, watching the snow gather along the wooden steps. Her heart pounded, but something inside her had shifted like a wall had finally cracked open, letting light pour through. She wasn't running away, she was leaving. And leaving is an act of strength. Logan opened the passenger door of his black Mercedes, its interior glowing softly. He placed a blanket on the seat, then turned back to her. "Take your time," he said. "I won't rush you, but you shouldn't stay a second longer than you have to." Emma nodded, though her legs felt like they would give out at any moment. She had imagined leaving before during those long nights. She cried alone, but she had never believed she would actually do it. She had felt too small, too tied down, too defeated. But tonight, all the small pieces of pain had built into something sharp enough to cut through her fear. She placed one foot on the first step. Andrew shot forward. "Emma, stop. Think about the baby." Emma froze, but not from fear. She turned, slowly, meeting his eyes. For the first time, she saw him clearly. Not the man she married, not the man she hoped would come back. She saw the man who let someone hurt her, who brought his mistress into their home, who sat silently as she cried on the kitchen floor. "My baby," she whispered, "is exactly why I'm leaving." The words hung in the cold air. Andrew's face twisted with fury. Logan's voice cut through the air. "She doesn't need someone who treats her like this." Mia grabbed Andrew's arm. "Forget her. Let her go. We don't need this drama." But Andrew shoved her off. "Shut up, Mia. This is between me and my wife." Emma lifted her chin. "You stopped being a husband the moment you invited her into our home." That truth hit harder than a slap. Andrew stepped back just a little, but enough for Emma to take another step toward the car. The world around her felt sharper, clearer. The snow sparkled under the porch light. Her breath formed steady clouds. The baby inside her shifted gently, like a soft reminder she wasn't alone. Logan held the car door open. "Whenever you're ready." Emma didn't look back again. She sank into the warm seat, pulling the blanket over her legs. Logan walked around to the driver's side while Andrew shouted her name, each call more desperate than the last. But the door closed, and everything that once trapped her stayed on the other side of the window. Logan started the engine, the soft hum filling the silence between them. Emma pressed her trembling hands against her belly, tears slipping silently down her cheeks, not from fear now, but from release. As the Mercedes pulled away from the curb, she looked back one last time at the house where her heart had been broken. Then she exhaled shakily and whispered, "Thank you." Logan glanced at her gently. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "We're only just getting started." And as the car disappeared into the snowy night, Emma stepped fully into the first moments of her new life, one she never imagined she'd be brave enough to claim. The drive from the house to the main road was quiet, but not the heavy kind of quiet Emma had grown used to. It wasn't the silence of fear or tension. It was the silence of transition, like the world itself was holding its breath as she stepped through an invisible doorway, separating her old life from something unknown, something frightening, something necessary. The soft hum of the Mercedes engine filled the air, steady and warm. Snowflakes tapped lightly against the windows, melting into tiny droplets that caught reflections of passing streetlights. Emma sat with her hands resting on her belly, fingers trembling every so often. The baby kept shifting, as if responding to her emotions. "I'm okay," she whispered to the life inside her. "We're okay now." But even as she said it, her voice wavered. Relief and grief were wrestling inside her. Relief that she had finally left, grief that her marriage had ended in such darkness. Logan kept his eyes on the road, his jaw tight, his hands steady on the steering wheel. He didn't push her to talk. He didn't ask questions. He simply drove with the quiet confidence of someone who understood that shattered people needed time to breathe before they could speak. When they reached a stoplight, he stole a glance at her. "You're safe now," he said softly. The words pierced something fragile inside her. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I feel stupid," she whispered. "I should have left sooner." "No," Logan said immediately, his voice firm but gentle. "You survived something that was meant to break you. There's nothing stupid about that." Emma looked out the window, watching the lights blur through her tears. She remembered the girl she used to be before Andrew chipped away at her confidence, before isolation became her routine, before her laughter became something she only remembered instead of experienced. She never imagined she'd be the woman crying in a car after fleeing her own home on Christmas Eve. A sharp breath escaped her. "I don't know what's going to happen next." Logan's fingers loosened on the steering wheel. "You don't need to know that tonight. Tonight, all you need is rest. Rest." The word felt foreign. She couldn't remember the last time she felt real rest. Pregnancy had drained her. Fear had consumed her. Loneliness had hollowed her out. When they reached the main road, the world opened up before them, wide, snowy, quiet. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she wasn't trapped in a loop of hopelessness. She felt movement. She felt possibility. But then her chest tightened at a sudden thought. "Andrew won't let this go," she whispered. "He's going to come after me." Logan didn't look surprised. "I know," he said. "That's why I didn't come empty-handed tonight." Emma turned to him slowly. "What do you mean?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin folder, black, neat, formal. He handed it to her gently. "I've been following Andrew's financial situation for a while," he admitted. "Not because I wanted to invade your privacy, but because I knew something wasn't right." Emma's heart pounded. She opened the folder with shaky hands. Inside were documents, screenshots, bank statements, evidence of Andrew's secret debts, his illegal agreements, his attempts to sign her name on financial papers she'd never seen. She covered her mouth, shocked. He forged my signature?" Logan nodded. "He tried to pull you down with him." A cold wave washed through her, not fear, but clarity. Andrew had never intended to love her the way she loved him. He had played her, used her, endangered her. And she had tried so hard to justify it. Tears welled again, but this time they didn't fall from helplessness. They fell from awakening. "I don't understand why you're helping me," she murmured, voice barely audible. Logan slowed the car slightly, turning toward her with eyes filled with something she hadn't seen in anyone for a long time, compassion without motive. "Because," he said quietly, 3 years ago, you saved my life. And when someone saves yours, you never turn your back on them." Emma's lips trembled. She couldn't speak. The car continued toward the city lights, snow swirling around them like a curtain closing on the worst night of her life. And Emma had no idea that tonight's rescue was only the beginning of a far bigger reckoning, one that would expose every secret Andrew thought he'd buried forever. The city skyline rose like a shimmering promise in the distance, Manhattan glowing beneath the soft veil of snow. Emma watched the lights blur through the car window as Logan's Mercedes crossed the state line, each mile pulling her farther away from the house that had drained her spirit. She wasn't used to this kind of quiet, the safe kind, the healing kind. Her body still trembled from the fear and humiliation she had endured, but as the highway stretched before them, she felt that trembling slowly shift into something else, something like release. Logan kept his focus on the road, only glancing at her when he sensed her breathing change. She held the black folder on her lap, its edges cutting lightly into her palms. Inside it lay the truth evidence of Andrew's lies, his debts, his hidden accounts, his shady business attempts. But Emma didn't open it again. She didn't need to. The truth was already heavy enough in her chest. She exhaled shakily. "I don't understand how you got all of this," she said softly. Logan didn't answer immediately. He waited until they passed a long stretch of highway lights before speaking. "The night of the accident," he began, "I was losing consciousness. People were gathered around, but no one touched me. No one did anything." His grip tightened on the steering wheel. "I remember your voice, clearer than anything. You kept saying, 'Stay with me, you're okay.' You held my hand the entire way until EMTs arrived." Emma blinked, surprised. "I was just doing my job." "No," Logan said firmly. "You saved me. Without you, I wouldn't be here." She shook her head, embarrassed. "You don't owe me anything." Logan inhaled slowly. "Maybe not. But after the accident, I looked you up, not to invade your life, but to thank you. And what I saw worried me." Emma's pulse quickened. "What do you mean? You were a bright, confident nurse. Then you quit suddenly, disappeared from social circles, cut off your coworkers." He glanced at her gently. "I suspected something was wrong, so I kept an eye out." Quietly, Emma lowered her gaze. The shame burned again, not because she had done anything wrong, but because the truth of her isolation was now visible to someone else. Logan continued, voice calm but somber. "The last few months, I noticed Andrew's activities. Money moving around, debts piling up, his phone registered to accounts you didn't know existed. And then..." He paused, jaw tightening. I saw footage from the street camera I installed near your house. At first it was normal, but then I saw how he yelled at you, the way he grabbed your arm, and tonight, seeing Mia hurt you." He stopped, shaking his head, struggling to keep his anger contained. Emma felt her throat tighten. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because," Logan said sadly, "you looked like someone trying desperately to hold her world together, and I didn't want to break it for you." She swallowed hard. His words struck deeper than she expected. She had spent months trying to convince herself she could fix her marriage, that she was the problem, that if she just loved harder, adjusted more, endured longer, everything would return to normal. But the truth was clearer now than ever. Her world had been breaking long before tonight. Logan slowed the car as they approached the bridge into Manhattan. The lights reflected across the water, shimmering like 1,000 tiny promises, waiting for her to claim them. "You haven't asked the question I expected," he said quietly. Emma looked at him. "What question?" "Why I came tonight." She hesitated. "Why did you?" Logan exhaled. "Something told me you needed help. Call it instinct. Call it fate. All I knew was that I couldn't stay away." Emma's breath caught. "You didn't have to." "Yes," he said gently. "I did." Their eyes met briefly, just long enough for Emma to feel something warm stir inside her chest, something she thought had died long ago. Outside the window, the city grew closer. And deep down, Emma sensed the path ahead of her was about to change in ways she never expected. Because Logan Sterling wasn't just someone from her past, he was about to become the anchor in her future. Back in the Connecticut house Emma had just escaped, the atmosphere had shifted violently. The moment Logan's Mercedes disappeared down the street, the last thin thread holding Andrew's ego together snapped. He slammed the front door so hard the wreath fell to the floor. Mia jumped, startled, clutching her purse like it might protect her from the storm she had helped create. "What the hell just happened?" Andrew shouted, pacing across the living room, his face flushed and pulsing with rage. "He can't just take her. That's my wife, my house." Mia stood frozen in her red dress, mascara smudged slightly under her eyes. "Well, maybe if you hadn't just stood there while she cried on the floor." Andrew spun toward her. "This is your fault." "My fault?" Mia snapped, stepping back. "You're the one who let everything get recorded." Her voice cracked with panic, not guilt. Because deep down, Mia knew the real danger wasn't Emma, it was Logan. A billionaire, a man with resources, a man with connections, a man who didn't bluff. She swallowed hard, suddenly regretting every cruel word she'd thrown at Emma. Andrew ran his hands through his hair. "That video, if he gives it to the police, I'm done. Do you understand? I could go to jail." Mia's eyes widened. "Jail?" "Yes, jail," Andrew spat. "She's pregnant and you—" He jabbed a finger at her. "You laid hands on her, and I didn't stop it. That's neglect, abuse, maybe worse." Mia seemed to fold in on herself for a moment. Her confidence, so loud and cruel an hour earlier, was now dissolving like sugar in water. Maybe Logan won't do anything," she whispered. Andrew laughed bitterly. "He will. He hates me. He's probably been waiting for this chance." Mia tried to gather her things discreetly. "Look, I should probably go home. I didn't sign up for this kind of drama." When she reached for the door, Andrew grabbed her arm. "You're not leaving." Mia yanked her arm back with a gasp. "Don't touch me." He stepped closer, desperation pouring off him. "You're staying to help me figure this out." "No, Andrew," Mia snapped, stepping away from him. "I'm not going down with you. You lied to me. You said Emma was boring and dramatic, she's pregnant and terrified, and you said you had everything under control, but you're drowning in debt and cheating scandals. I'm not stupid enough to get dragged into your mess." Andrew clenched his fists. "You're unbelievable." "Right back at you," Mia shot back. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. "I thought you were different. But you're just a desperate, broke coward hiding behind a fake watch and borrowed money." Andrew's face twisted. "Get out." Mia didn't hesitate. She grabbed her coat and bolted, slipping on the icy steps before sprinting toward her car. She didn't look back once. For Mia, the game was over. Self-preservation came first. Andrew stood alone in the doorway, breathing hard as her taillights disappeared. For the first time all night, He felt the weight of the truth settle in. Emma was gone. Logan had evidence. His debts were exposed. And Mia, his supposed ally, had abandoned him without hesitation. The house felt startlingly quiet without their voices. The holiday decorations that Emma had painstakingly prepared now looked like hollow reminders of everything he had destroyed. The candles burned low, casting long, haunting shadows across the floor. Andrew sank onto the couch, gripping his hair. He had always assumed Emma would never leave, that she needed him, that she was too gentle, too loyal, too forgiving to walk away. But she had walked. She had chosen herself. And the realization cracked something inside him that he couldn't repair. Snow piled against the window as the night deepened, suffocating the house in silence. And it was only then, sitting alone in the ruins of his own making, that Andrew finally understood what true loss felt like. The closer they drew to Manhattan, the more the skyline rose like a glowing monument against the snowy night. Towers of glass shimmered under streetlights, their reflections stretching across the Hudson River like golden threads. Emma watched silently from the passenger seat, her breath fogging the window as she stared at a world she had only ever passed through briefly, never entered, never claimed. Tonight felt surreal, as if she had stepped out of her old life and into a movie she wasn't prepared to star in. Logan guided the Mercedes smoothly across the bridge, the hum of the engine mingling with distant city noise, a comforting, rhythmic soundtrack she didn't realize she needed. The baby shifted again, softer this time, as though sensing the change in atmosphere. Emma placed a hand over her belly instinctively. "You doing all right?" Logan asked quietly, glancing toward her. She nodded, just overwhelmed. "That's normal," he said. "You've had more than anyone should ever handle in one night." Emma looked down at her cardigan, stained with cranberry sauce and mashed potatoes, remnants of the cruelty she had endured. She tugged at the fabric self-consciously. "I look a mess." Logan shook his head. "You look like someone who survived something impossible." His voice softened further. "And I'm proud of you." Her eyes stung. She turned toward the window again, blinking away, the emotion gathering behind her lashes. She wasn't used to kind words anymore. They hit her deeper than insults ever could. As they entered the city, the lights grew brighter, the streets busier. Even at that hour, holiday decorations sparkled across storefronts, string lights, wreaths, giant red bows. The energy of Manhattan was alive despite the snow. Emma felt small inside it, but not in the same way she felt small in her own home. This kind of smallness wasn't about fear. It was about possibility. She didn't know what the next hour would bring, but for the first time in months, she wasn't terrified. Logan pulled into a quiet underground garage beneath a sleek high-rise in Tribeca. The moment he parked, he turned toward her gently. "Before we go up, I want you to know something." Emma looked at him, unsure what to expect. "No one is judging you," he said. "Not here. Not with me. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to explain. You're safe." Her chest squeezed with a mixture of relief and grief. She swallowed hard. "Thank you," she whispered. "Really?" He nodded once, then exited the car and walked around to help her out. The cold Manhattan air hit her cheeks, fresh and crisp. Logan placed his hand near her back, not touching, just guiding. A gesture of respect she wasn't used to. They entered the elevator, the doors sliding shut behind them. Soft music played inside, a gentle piano melody. Emma leaned against the mirrored wall, exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her body trembling with leftover shock. As they ascended, Logan glanced at her reflection. "If you want, I can have someone come by tomorrow with clothes, toiletries, anything you need." "You don't have to do all that," Emma murmured. "I know," he replied. "That's why I'm offering." The elevator slowed to a stop. The doors opened into a penthouse hallway lit with warm sconces. Logan stepped ahead and unlocked a black door with a modern brass handle. When Emma walked in, she inhaled sharply. The penthouse unfolded like a warm, quiet refuge, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the city lights, a plush cream sofa facing a marble fireplace, soft rugs layered across polished hardwood floors. Everything felt serene, intentional, comforting. A stark contrast to the chaos she had just escaped. "You can stay here as long as you need," Logan said. "The guest room is ready." Emma walked slowly into the living room, her fingers grazing the back of the sofa as if confirming it was real. She felt something loosen inside her chest, a knot she had carried for months. "You didn't have to bring me here," she said softly. "You didn't owe me anything." Logan stepped beside her, his voice calm but firm. "I don't help people because I owe them. I help people because it's right." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She caught it with her sleeve, embarrassed, but Logan didn't look away. "Emma," he said gently, "you're allowed to cry. You're allowed to feel everything." She sat slowly on the sofa, sinking into its warmth, her body finally letting go of some of the tension she'd been holding. The city lights reflected in her tired eyes as she whispered, "Maybe. This is the first time I've felt safe in a very long time." Logan's voice was low, steady. "You are safe. And tomorrow, we start making sure you never go back to that life again." Emma woke the next morning to the soft glow of winter sunlight streaming through sheer curtains. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. The room was warm, quiet, spacious, nothing like the small, dim bedroom she had cried in for months. Then the memories of the night before came rushing back. The humiliation, Logan appearing, the escape, Manhattan. Her eyes stung with leftover exhaustion, but her breathing felt steadier, safer. She pushed herself upright slowly. The guest room was elegant in a simple, calming way: creamy walls, a soft rug, a nightstand with a glass of water, and a folded gray sweater placed neatly beside it. Logan must have left it, a gesture that felt too thoughtful, almost overwhelming in its gentleness. She slipped into the sweater before stepping into the hallway, moving carefully. Her feet ached, her back twinged. Pregnancy didn't pause for emotional breakdowns, but today the pain felt different, less like a weight and more like a reminder she had survived something enormous. She heard quiet voices in the kitchen and followed the sound. When she entered, Logan looked up from the counter where he was pouring hot water into a mug. His expression softened when he saw her. "Morning," he said gently. "I made chamomile. It's good for stress." Emma nodded gratefully and took the warm mug, the heat comforting her cold fingers. She sat at the island counter, resting both hands around the cup. "Did you sleep?" Logan asked. "A little," she replied. "Better than usual." "Good." He sat across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. He didn't crowd her. He didn't study her like she was fragile. He simply waited, giving her space to breathe. Emma took a small sip of tea, gathering courage. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now." "You don't have to decide everything today," Logan replied. "But there are things we need to talk about. Things that can protect you and the baby." Her stomach tightened. "The documents you showed me, I still can't believe Andrew would drag me into something like that." Logan nodded, sliding a black envelope across the counter. "These are copies. I also forwarded the originals to my attorney. He's expecting us." Emma froze, her fingers hovering above the envelope. "Your attorney?" "Yes," Logan said calmly. "He's one of the best in Manhattan. He handles high-profile divorce and financial cases. He can get you full protection." His voice softened. "And he can make sure Andrew never has the chance to hurt you again." Emma's heart raced. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for a legal fight." Logan leaned forward slightly, his tone reassuring. "That's why you won't be doing it alone." She inhaled shakily. The thought of facing Andrew in court terrified her. She imagined his rage, his accusations, his attempt to twist everything. But she also remembered the moment she walked out of that house, the moment she chose herself, the moment she realized her fear was no longer stronger than her instinct to protect her baby. "What would happen?" she asked quietly. Logan explained carefully, clearly, making sure she understood each step. "First, we file for emergency protective orders. Then we present the evidence, video, documents, the financial reports. My team will handle everything. You'll only speak when absolutely necessary." Emma's throat tightened. "And the baby?" "You'll get full custody," Logan said simply. "Andrew has no case, not with what he allowed to happen, not with the proof we have." She blinked rapidly as emotion welled up again. She didn't want to cry in front of him, but her chest trembled. "I never wanted any of this. I just wanted a family." "I know," Logan said. "But sometimes saving your family means leaving the person trying to destroy it." Emma looked down at her mug, her reflection trembling in the tea. She thought of the baby's future. She thought of the nights she cried alone. She thought of Mia's hands in her hair, the food shoved in her face, the shame burning through her. And then she thought of the life she could build from here. Quiet mornings, safety, peace. She lifted her head slowly. "Okay," she whispered, "I'll do it." Logan didn't smile. He didn't show triumph. Instead, he exhaled with visible relief. "Good, then we start today." Emma clutched her stomach as her baby kicked gently, almost encouragingly. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt the first spark of freedom flicker inside her, steady and warm. The Manhattan courthouse loomed tall and solemn against the winter sky, its stone columns dusted with fresh snow. Emma stood at the bottom of the steps, bundled in the soft gray coat Logan had given her to replace the stained cardigan she'd worn the night she fled. Her breath curled into the cold morning air as she stared up at the building, heart pounding steadily beneath her ribs. The baby shifted again, uneasy, maybe sensing her nerves. She rested her hand over her belly and whispered, "It's okay. Mommy's right here." Logan stood beside her, offering quiet reassurance without saying a word. He kept a respectful distance, as always, but the warmth of his presence was unmistakable. On her other side was Mr. Hartman, Logan's attorney, an older man with steady eyes and a calm voice that carried the weight of experience. His tailored suit, leather briefcase, and Montblanc pen clipped neatly to his pocket suggested he was someone used to winning fights no one else could. "You've got the truth on your side," Hartman said gently, "and the truth speaks loudly in rooms like this." Emma nodded. Even though fear tangled with her courage, she had never stepped into a courtroom before. She'd spent her life helping people heal, not confronting someone who had destroyed her trust. But she wasn't walking in alone anymore. Inside, the courthouse buzzed with quiet conversations, heels clicking on marble floors, papers shuffling. Emma clutched the rail as they climbed the stairs, her body heavier than usual. Stress had taken a toll. She paused at the landing to breathe. "You okay?" Logan asked softly. She nodded weakly. "Just tired." He held out his hand, not to take hers, but to offer it if she needed. She didn't let go until they reached the courtroom doors. When they stepped inside, Emma froze. Andrew was already seated at the defendant's table. His hair was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot, his suit wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept. When he turned and saw her, his expression flickered, shock, then desperation, then anger. Beside him sat a lawyer Emma didn't recognize, younger and clearly unprepared for what he was about to face. And next to that lawyer, Mia. Emma felt a chill crawl down her spine. Mia wore a long black coat and oversized sunglasses, clearly trying to look composed, but her lips were tight, and her foot tapped anxiously. She glanced at Emma, then away quickly. The judge entered, and the room rose. Emma's breath shortened. This was real, too real. The hearing began with formalities, but everything felt distant to Emma until Hartman slid a flash drive across the table. "Your Honor," he said, voice steady. "This contains video evidence recorded from a street security device pointing toward the plaintiff's home. It shows assault, harassment, and neglect toward a pregnant woman." The drive clicked into the computer. Andrew whispered fiercely, "No, turn that off." But his voice cracked with panic. Mia crossed her arms and leaned away, as if preparing to distance herself from the disaster she helped create. The first video began playing. Emma watched herself on the screen, her swollen belly, her trembling hands, Mia grabbing her hair, forcing food into her face. She heard her own cries echo faintly through the speakers. She felt her chest tighten, her throat clogged. She looked down, fighting nausea. Logan reached subtly behind her chair and placed his hand lightly on the backrest, close enough to steady her, far enough not to overwhelm. The judge paused the video halfway. His tone hardened. "This is unacceptable. A pregnant woman, subjected to this level of violence, is grounds for immediate protective action." Andrew jumped up. "It wasn't like that. She's emotional. She overreacted." "Sit down, Mr. Walker," the judge ordered sharply. "Now." Andrew sank into his seat, flushed and trembling. Hartman continued. "Additionally, Your Honor, we have documentation showing Mr. Walker attempted to use his wife's identity to secure illegal loans. Her signatures were forged." The courtroom murmured. Emma gripped her seat. This part was harder. Betrayal in her marriage was one thing, but using her identity, endangering her financially. Andrew shot to his feet again. She doesn't know anything about finances anyway. Mr. Walker, the judge snapped, you are one outburst away from being escorted out. Mia slowly slid her chair away from Andrew. Cowardice had replaced her cruelty. The judge flipped through several pages, his expression darkening. Finally, he looked at Emma, softening. Mrs. Walker, based on the evidence presented, I'm granting you full emergency custody, immediate protective orders, and the right to retain your residence until further notice. Emma's lips parted. Relief hit her so hard she nearly lost her breath. Then the judge turned to Andrew. And Mr. Walker, you will face criminal review for fraud and neglect. Andrew's face collapsed into disbelief. Mia looked like she wanted to disappear. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply, her baby moving gently beneath her palm. For the first time in a very long time, Emma Walker was no longer powerless. The courtroom seemed to shrink around Andrew the moment the judge delivered his ruling. His shoulders, once pulled back with arrogance, now slumped inward like a man watching his entire life crumble into dust. Emma sat quietly, hands resting over her belly, trying to steady her breathing as the judge's words echoed through the room. Protective orders, full custody, fraud investigation. The consequences Andrew believed he was too clever to face were now laid bare in front of him, undeniable and public. But the humiliation wasn't over yet. Mr. Walker, the judge said sternly, adjusting his glasses, this court takes threats, violence, and financial manipulation extremely seriously, especially toward a pregnant spouse. You have shown negligence, irresponsibility, and disregard for your wife's well-being. Andrew clenched his fists. Your Honor, it was a misunderstanding. The judge raised a hand sharply. Silence. Logan, seated behind Emma, remained still calm, composed, unreadable. But beneath that quiet exterior, Emma sensed he was ready to intervene at any moment if Andrew tried anything reckless. The judge turned his attention back to the documents before him. Based on the evidence, I'm freezing all joint accounts effective immediately. Mrs. Walker will have full access to marital assets until the official divorce proceedings. Mr. Walker, you will be limited to controlled withdrawals only. Andrew's jaw dropped. You can't do that. I just did, the judge replied without emotion. A ripple of whispers moved through the courtroom. Emma glanced at Andrew, and for the first time, she didn't feel fear. She felt clarity. This man, who once controlled their bank accounts, her movements, even her phone calls, now had his financial world tightened around him like a closing fist. Mia shifted nervously in her seat beside Andrew. She looked like she wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. The judge continued. I am also granting Mrs. Walker immediate sole residency of the marital home. Mr. Walker, you must vacate the property within 48 hours. Andrew shot to his feet, face burning red. Vacate? That's my house. She's the one she's exaggerating all of this. Hartman rose slowly. Your Honor, may I remind the court, the footage. Andrew deflated instantly. One mention of the video was enough to silence him. The truth was too powerful, too vivid, too damning. The judge sighed, exhausted by Andrew's outbursts. Bailiff, escort Mr. Walker out if he stands up again without permission. Andrew sank back down like a scolded child. But Emma's heart pounded harder, not out of fear, but out of something she had forgotten she possessed. Strength. Years of silence, of being belittled, of being told she was fragile or dramatic. Years of shrinking herself to fit Andrew's demands seemed to dissolve the longer she watched him unravel under the weight of his actions. Mia suddenly raised her hand weakly. Your Honor, she said, voice trembling. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I didn't know. The judge cut her off. Miss Langford, you participated in assaulting a pregnant woman. Whether intentionally or under Mr. Walker's influence, the law will address your actions separately. Mia's face crumpled. She looked at Andrew with pure betrayal. He avoided her eyes entirely. She had gambled her future for him, and lost. The hearing concluded shortly after, the judge setting a formal follow-up date. As the gavel struck, Emma's entire body felt lighter. The sound echoed through her like a release valve finally opening. The bailiff approached Andrew. Time to go. Andrew glared at Emma one last time. His voice was low, raw, dangerous. You'll regret this. Before Emma could respond, Logan stepped forward, placing himself between her and Andrew, his voice like steel. "She won't regret a thing. But you will." Andrew snarled, but the bailiff took his arm and led him toward the exit. Mia followed behind, trembling, not daring to look back at Emma. And just like that, they were gone. Emma sat there in the near-empty courtroom, her heart pounding in her ears, her hands shaky but free, truly free. Logan moved to her side, lowering his voice. "You did it." Emma exhaled unevenly, tears blurring her vision. "I didn't do it alone." He offered her a small, steady smile. "You survived more than most people ever will." She wiped her eyes, inhaling slowly. The storm she'd lived in for so long had finally broken apart. And though the wreckage was still scattered around her, Emma Walker walked out of that courtroom, no longer a woman defeated. She walked out a woman reborn. Outside the courthouse, the icy wind swept down the steps, scattering flakes of snow around Emma's boots. She held the railing, steadying herself as Logan and Hartman stayed close without crowding her. A part of her wanted to collapse in exhaustion right there, but another part, stronger and rising, refused to let her bend anymore. She had walked into that building, terrified. She was walking out of it, victorious. And somewhere deep inside, her old self, the one she thought Andrew had destroyed, stirred with slow, powerful awakening. But the world wasn't done unraveling. As they reached the sidewalk, a car screeched to a halt near the curb. The door swung open, and Mia stumbled out, her face pale, her breath fogging in the cold air. She wore no coat, only her long black dress from the hearing. Fear clung to her like a second skin. "Emma," she called out, voice trembling. "Wait." Emma froze. Logan immediately moved closer, subtly shielding Emma with his stance. Hartman tensed, unsure if this was an ambush or a plea. Mia rushed toward them, heels slipping on the snow. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked nothing like the perfect, polished woman who smirked across Emma's dining table just days ago. She looked broken, hollow, small. "Please just listen," Mia begged, her voice cracking. I didn't know he forged signatures. I didn't know he stole from you. I swear I didn't know." Emma stared at her, stunned not by the words, but by the desperation in them. "Why are you telling me this?" she finally asked. "Because he blamed me," Mia cried. "The moment we left the courthouse, he said everything was my fault. He threatened me. He said if I don't help him fix things, he'd make sure the police saw me as the main attacker." Emma's heart tightened. She had suffered under Andrew's manipulation for years. She knew exactly how Mia must have felt in that moment, cornered, scared, trapped by the same man who tore her down. But empathy was tangled in something else too. Justice. "Mia," Emma said quietly, "you helped humiliate me. You hurt me. You grabbed me. You forced food into my face." Mia winced like the words were physical blows. I know," she sobbed. "And I swear if I could go back and undo it, I would. But she choked on her breath. "I just want to get away from him. He won't leave me alone." Logan stepped forward slightly. "What did he say to you?" Mia wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "He said he'd leak my messages. He'd ruin my job. He even said he'd show up at my apartment if I tried to cut him off." Emma exchanged a look with Logan. He didn't need to speak. His expression said enough. Andrew was spiraling and dangerous. Hartman cleared his throat. "Miss Langford, if you fear retaliation, you can file for protection as well." Mia's eyes widened with fragile hope. "Can I, really?" "Yes," Hartman said. "And the court will take your statement seriously, especially if you're willing to testify about what you witnessed." The color drained from Mia's face all over again. Testify. Against Andrew. The idea clearly terrified her, but she also seemed to realize she had no other way out. Emma studied her carefully. For so long, she believed Mia existed only as her tormentor. But now she was seeing something else, a woman caught in the same trap Emma barely escaped. A woman manipulated by Andrew's need for control. A woman who thought she was winning until the trap snapped around her too. But pity wasn't the same as forgiveness. "Mia," Emma said softly, "I'm not excusing what you did. But you don't have to stay tied to him. You can walk away." "You should walk away." Mia nodded rapidly, tears streaming. "It's not just him," she whispered, voice breaking. "It's everything. The lies, the guilt, what I did to you. I can't sleep, I can't eat, everything keeps replaying in my head. I didn't think he'd actually hurt you. I thought it was just a game. I was stupid. Emma took a slow breath. You weren't stupid, you were used. Mia looked at her, shocked that Emma would say something so gentle after everything. Logan stepped between them, speaking calmly but firmly. Mia, if you give a full statement, we'll make sure you get protection, but you have to decide fast. Andrew is becoming unpredictable. Mia nodded again, more certain this time. I'll do it. I'll testify. Then she turned to Emma, tears falling freely. I'm so sorry for everything. Emma didn't say she forgave her, but she did nod. It was enough. As Mia hurried away with Hartman to file her statement, Logan touched Emma's elbow lightly. You handled that with grace. Emma exhaled shakily. I'm not sure I feel graceful. You don't have to feel it, he replied. You just proved it. Emma looked up at the sky as snow began to fall again, gentle and quiet. For the first time, she realized something. Her voice, her boundaries, her strength, they were coming back to her. Emma had expected the days after the hearing to feel chaotic, but instead they unfolded with an almost unsettling quiet. Manhattan moved outside the penthouse windows with its usual unstoppable energy taxis honking, people hurrying across crosswalks, steam rising from subway grates, but inside Logan's home, everything felt soft, slow, and strangely gentle. She woke each morning to sunlight instead of dread, to the hum of city life instead of Andrew's criticism. For the first time in months, she wasn't bracing for something ugly. She was simply existing. And that alone felt like learning how to breathe again. Logan kept his distance, yet never disappeared. He gave her space, but not abandonment. Some mornings, he would leave a cup of warm herbal tea outside her door before heading to an early meeting, the steam rising like a quiet reminder she wasn't alone. Other times, he would ask casually if she wanted to join him for a walk in Central Park. The invitations were soft, never pushy. She often said yes, craving the open air. They would walk slowly along the snowy paths, the branches dusted white, her hand resting on her belly while Logan matched her pace without question. During one walk, she paused near the frozen pond, watching children toss handfuls of powdery snow into the air. The laughter stung her at first. She wondered if her child would ever know that kind of joy. She wondered if she would ever feel it again herself. Logan, sensing her shift in mood, quietly handed her a scarf he'd brought along, just in case. She didn't need it, but she wrapped it around her neck anyway, grateful for the gesture. He didn't ask what she was thinking. He simply stood beside her, letting her find the words at her own speed. Back at the penthouse, her evenings often became moments of real healing. Logan had stocked a small shelf in the guest room with books, gentle, grounding ones. She found herself drawn to Women Who Run with the Wolves, reading a few pages each night on the couch while the fireplace crackled. The stories of resilience, instinct, and rebirth struck something deep inside her. She realized that for years she had drowned her own instincts to please someone who only tightened his grip every time she made herself smaller. Now, reading in the quiet warmth, she felt those instincts slowly rising again, like a tide returning. Sometimes Logan cooked simple meals, nothing fancy. Pasta with fresh basil, grilled chicken with lemon, warm soup on colder nights. Emma hadn't realized how much she missed sharing a meal that wasn't laced with tension. She would sit at the counter while Logan moved around the kitchen with practiced ease. He wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was simply being present. The normalcy of it made her chest ache. One evening, while he stirred a pot of soup, she whispered, "I forgot what it felt like, to be taken care of without feeling guilty." Logan looked at her, a softness in his expression. "You deserve that," he said, and more. Her sleep improved too. The nightmares came less often. The baby's movements felt calmer, steadier, as though the little life inside her understood they were in a safer place. She found herself placing a hand on her belly more frequently, whispering hopes instead of fears. Sometimes, Logan would ask how the baby was doing, not out of obligation, but genuine curiosity. Those moments softened her even more. She wasn't falling for him, not yet, not fully. But she was beginning to trust the quiet he brought into her world. The biggest change came one night when she stood before the penthouse windows, watching snow drift across the city lights. She felt a sudden shift inside her, not panic, not sorrow, but something warm, steady, and unfamiliar. For the first time in a very long time, she felt safe enough to imagine a future that didn't include pain. Winter settled deeper over Manhattan, turning the city into a quiet, glowing snow globe. Streetlights reflected off icy sidewalks, and the hum of life continued far below the penthouse windows. Inside, Emma felt a strange sense of stillness, one she hadn't known in years. Her old life had been noise, yelling, criticism, slammed doors, footsteps full of anger. Here, silence wasn't frightening, it was peaceful. And in that peace, something new began to take shape. It didn't happen quickly, nothing real ever does. But every day, Emma found herself watching Logan with a different kind of awareness. The way he spoke softly when asking if she needed anything, the way he looked at her belly with respect, not pity, the way he never pushed, never hovered, never treated her like she was fragile glass. He offered steadiness, warmth, a quiet presence that made her feel human again. One evening, after a long walk through a lightly snow-dusted Central Park, they returned to the penthouse with cold fingers and pink cheeks. Logan removed his coat and draped it on the hook, then turned to find Emma rubbing her lower back with a small wince. "You okay?" he asked gently. "Just sore," she admitted. "The baby feels heavier these days." Without hesitating, Logan nodded toward the sofa. "Sit. I'll make you something warm." She didn't argue. She lowered herself onto the soft cushions and watched as he moved into the kitchen, rolling up the sleeves of his sweater. The domestic sight made her chest ache unexpectedly. She wasn't used to this someone caring, someone anticipating her needs without expecting anything in return. He prepared a simple mug of warm milk with cinnamon, sliding it across the coffee table. Emma curled her fingers around it, letting the heat seep into her palms. "Thank you," she murmured. "Always," he replied. The word lingered, heavy and gentle all at once. They sat quietly for a moment, the fireplace crackling softly. The penthouse lights were dim, turning the room golden. Emma stared into the flames, gathering courage she didn't know she had. "Logan," she said in a small voice, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why? Why have you been so kind to me? Even before you saw the video, even before you knew everything." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he leaned back, elbows resting on his knees, his voice soft but steady. "Because the night you saved my life, I saw something in you I never forgot. You didn't treat me like a billionaire or a headline. You treated me like a human being who was scared. You stayed when other people froze. You cared, even though you didn't know me." Emma lowered her gaze. "But that was just my job." "No," Logan said, shaking his head. "It was your heart. And when I realized you were in pain, real, silent pain, I couldn't ignore it. I wouldn't." Emma swallowed hard as warmth spread across her chest. For so long, she had felt invisible. Now someone saw her completely. He hesitated, then added, "And somewhere along the way, I started caring more than I expected to." The words made her breath catch. Her heart fluttered, gentle, unsure, hopeful. "I'm not asking you for anything," Logan said quickly, afraid to overwhelm her. "You've been through enough. I just want you to know that whatever you choose to do with your life, I'll support you. Whether that means staying here until the baby comes, or finding your own place, or anything else." Emma looked up slowly, meeting his gaze. His eyes were warm, steady, sincere, so different from the coldness she had lived with for so long. "I don't know what I'm ready for," she whispered, "but I know I trust you." Logan's expression softened into something almost vulnerable. "That's enough," he said quietly. "More than enough." The baby kicked suddenly, a soft but strong reminder that life was moving forward. Emma placed her hand over her belly and smiled faintly. Logan watched her with a look she wasn't used to, a look filled, not with desire or pity, but admiration. And in that moment, she realized something she hadn't dared admit. She was beginning to heal, not just because she left Andrew, but because someone finally showed her what real care felt like. Spring arrived quietly in Manhattan, melting the winter snow and replacing it with soft sunlight that spilled through the penthouse windows like a blessing. Emma stood near the glass, dressed in a loose white maternity dress that rested gently against her now full-term belly. The city moved far below her: yellow cabs, coffee carts, people rushing to work, but inside, everything felt peaceful. Safe. She had grown stronger in these last months, her spirit rebuilding itself piece by piece. She no longer startled at sudden noises. She no longer braced for anger. She no longer felt trapped inside her own skin. Her due date was only days away. Each morning, she woke with a mix of excitement and nervousness, but never fear. Logan had been by her side throughout, steady, patient, respectful, and the walls she once built around her heart had begun to soften in ways she hadn't expected. Today was special. Today marked exactly 3 months since she left the house that had suffocated her for years. 3 months since the court hearing that freed her. 3 months since she took her life back. Logan stepped into the room quietly, holding 2 mugs of herbal tea. "Thought you might want something warm," he said, offering one to her. She accepted it with a grateful smile. "Thank you, again. You say that a lot," he teased gently. "Because I mean it," she replied. He stood beside her, both of them gazing out at the skyline. She noticed the way he kept glancing at her, as though making sure she was truly okay. It wasn't possessive, it was protective, and she'd learned the difference. "You look peaceful today," Logan said softly. "I feel peaceful," Emma admitted, for the first time in a long time. A comfortable silence settled between them before Logan cleared his throat. "There's something I want to talk to you about, but only if you're ready." Emma turned to him, heart beating calmly. "I'm listening." He set his mug down and took a step closer, not too close, not overwhelming, just enough to show sincerity. "I've been thinking a lot about the future," he said carefully. "Your future. The baby's future. And where I fit into all that." Emma felt her breath catch, but not in fear. In anticipation, "Before you say anything," Logan continued, "I want you to know this. I don't want to take advantage of your vulnerability. I don't want to rush you. I don't want you to feel you owe me anything. What I feel, it comes from respect, from admiration, from watching you rebuild your strength every day." Emma's eyes softened. "You and your baby deserve a gentle life," he said, "a peaceful one. And I want to be part of that if you'll let me." Her heart fluttered, warm and full. He reached into his pocket slowly, cautiously, and pulled out a small blue box. Tiffany blue. But he didn't drop to one knee. He didn't open it dramatically. Instead, he held it in both hands, offering it like something precious but not presumptuous. "This isn't a proposal," he clarified quietly. "Not yet. This is a promise. Inside is a necklace, something simple. Something I hope will remind you every day that your life belongs to you now, not to fear or pain. And if, someday, you feel ready, I would like to build a life with you." Emma's throat tightened with emotion. Her fingers trembled as she took the box. She opened it slowly. Inside rested a delicate silver necklace with a small heart-shaped charm engraved with one word: free. Tears welled in her eyes. "I never thought I'd get here," she whispered. "I never thought I'd feel safe enough to even think about a future, let alone love." Logan's voice softened. "You don't need to decide anything today. Just know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Emma placed a hand over her heart, then over her belly. The baby kicked gentle, perfectly timed, almost like encouragement. She stepped forward, closing the small distance between them, and rested her forehead lightly against his chest. Logan froze for a moment, then wrapped his arms around her carefully, protectively, reverently. "Logan," she murmured, voice trembling with gratitude, "I want you in our future." His breath hitched, and she felt his heartbeat quicken against her cheek. Outside, the city glowed with the light of a new season. Inside, Emma Walker finally stepped into a life filled with safety, dignity, love, and a future she never dreamed she deserved. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning again. So, our story finally comes to an end. And if you are still here, still watching, still listening, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a way you didn't expect. Maybe it reminded you of a moment you kept silent. Maybe it reminded you of the strength you forgot you had. Or maybe it simply reminded you that healing is possible, even after the deepest hurt. You know, the Stoics used to say, the obstacle is the way. I think Emma's story shows exactly that pain doesn't have to be the ending. It can be the beginning of becoming someone stronger, clearer, and finally free. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And when Emma reclaimed her voice, she reclaimed her life. In our own lives, we often stay too long in places that dim our spirit, but this story reminds us, you deserve safety. You deserve respect. You deserve peace, and you are allowed to walk toward it. If this message found you at the right moment, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to our channel so we can keep walking through these stories together, one heart at a time.